Tou, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on here. I think I was really drawn to your story, to everything that you're doing, because I resonate with you in the way that, we were kind of, before we were on the mic, we're talking about hustling. And man, you've done it all. I was talking to a friend of ours, Ozzy, and I was just like, this guy's like he's like the Captain Hmong America, like he is like, Marine, former Marine, EMT, firefighter, you start your own business. I was like, dude, like I guarantee you every Hmong mom listening to this looks at their, daughters and is like, go marry one of those, And so, dude, man, when I was reading kind of all those things you've been doing, what resonated inside of me is this, dude. I don't have any kids, but I have a bunch of little, nieces and nephews, and especially for my nephews, like these like young Hmong boys. And you have kids, right?
Nope.
Oh, you have,
no kids.
You're married?
Yeah,
married?
Yeah,
no
kids yet.
Okay, but I think of all my little nephews, right? And I think that if I could give them an example of somebody goes, hey, look up to this Hmong man, or look up to this one person who's outside of your family, you're definitely, resemble that. And so that's why I was just so like inspired. And I call up, Matt, our producer, and said, hey man, like, let's get this dude on the show. Like, and so and I want to talk about that, and especially, one of the things that we get on this show is we get a lot of incredible Hmong women who do incredible things, right? In these sisters of ours who are out there rocking it, but I want to really highlight some of these Hmong men who are doing incredible things that are, really personify that word of what is it to grind it out? What's true hustle. And when I say hustle, man, like hustle in the way that like our parents and grandparents did it back in, Laos and Thailand, when it's like they literally went out and worked the fields. They literally went out and fought the war for us. And so that's why I was so excited just to get you here. I want to hear a little bit about your life, some of the things that you've done, the many 3 or 4 lives that you've had before you are where you are now and what you're doing now. So like let's just start it out, man. Like Marines, why the Marines? Get in.
So first of all, thanks for having me on. I appreciate all the nice things you said. However, for me, it's just going through life, right? Just going through life, doing things that excite me. But the Marines really was just completely random, man. Didn't know anything about any of the branches. No, this is 2006. I didn't know anybody else in the military, and I didn't know anything about the branches. I just walked in the Marine Corps first. They got me. They sold me. They do their job well, and so that's how that happened. But going through it as an 18, 19, 20-year-old, you're like, sometimes you just want to be home. That's kind of how you feel, or that's how I felt. But then coming out and now looking back, you learn so many good things there, things that like just how to be disciplined, do things you don't want to do, waking up early, just doing those things that you got to do, that your parents probably told you to do and you didn't listen. And then when a sergeant tells you, you're like, I'll do it. So those things are principles that I try to carry with me like all the time, because it's like if you've already learned it and you've already gone through it, then what's the point of just letting go of all those things? Like you got to use those.
So did you go straight out of high school?
Yes.
Did you join?
Yep, straight out of high school. So I was in high school. I went to Lakeville down south a little bit. And I wasn't doing well. I wasn't a school kid at all, So it was just like, well, either the Marine or I don't know what you're going to do. So the Marine was the choice. But I'm glad I did, man. It really changed. I think it changed a lot of things for me. It really started putting me on a path that kind of I was.
Did you go out to San Diego for your Coronado, right?
So San Diego is actually MCRD. It's like it borders the airport.
Okay.
If you ever land in San Diego and you look to your left or to your right, depending which way you're landing, you'll see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you went out there, basic training.
So basic training for 3 months. Came home shortly, went back for Marine combat training.
Okay.
That's over in Pendleton, which is also Cali.
Yep.
And then went straight to Texas for crash fire rescue school. So basically what that is just firefighting, but on aircrafts. So instead of doing
are you serious?
Yeah, so instead of doing like people, kind of what I did here later on, it's more just dealing with like down aircrafts, hot brakes, because sometimes things fail. And so you're more of a runway. And we have that here too at the MSP. Every airport's got those firefighters. So that's what I went there for.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how long were you in the Marines for?
So it was reservist. So
Okay.
for those who don't know, reservist is just like you do your time early and then you just do 1 weekend a month.
Okay.
So I did that for 2006 to 2012, so 6 years.
Wow.
That was the term of the contract. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me tell you something. Let me ask you something. So being in the Marines, like, what are like just two basic principles that you learned, leaving the Marine? Two basic principles that you still apply to your life today?
Yeah. I mean, for sure, it's just the discipline aspect of everything. I think discipline part of it is huge. Their thing that they like to say is instant obedient to orders, which sounds really crazy.
It sounds like our childhood growing up with our parents.
It sounds a little wild,
Yeah.
but that principle in the real world is like it's good because it when you know how to take orders like that, you also can come back into the world. Like when I was younger, I was super stubborn, still am, but super stubborn to the point where when people told me what to do, I didn't like that. And I think most teens are probably like that.
Yeah, that's teenagers.
Yeah, teenagers. But so then learning how to just say, when someone tells you what to do, sometimes you got to just take it in and do it. And that actually became a huge asset later on where I was like, you're not going to love everything that you do, but if you just do it, then it moves you forward. And a lot of things in life you're not going to like, but you just got to do it. So that's definitely one thing. Yeah, I mean, I bring it back to discipline. If I was when you round everything together, discipline is the biggest thing that I learned there. It was just you're not gonna like what you do all the time, but if you grind through it, you're gonna pass that hill. Because the Marine Corps, the way it's set up through boot camp, Marine combat training, your schools, your deployment, it's always like a set of challenge, right? It's like you got 8 months, you're gonna do this thing. And then when you're done, they'll give you like a piece of paper and say good job. But it's always set up in that way. Yeah. And so you're always like, okay, well, I'll just take my life like one chunk at a time. And as long as I can just achieve that, then overall it becomes good, So little by little.
In a very small scale, it's kind of like when I first started cooking, it was always like you have this case of 50 pounds of potatoes. And you have to peel them.
The hard work.
And it's like, okay, you got to peel them. But like after you're done with this, we have something else for you to do. And I would always, I hated peeling potatoes. So I turned it into a game in my head where I would look at the clock and I'd be like, okay, 50 pounds, like I can do it in half an hour. And I'll do it in be like 32 minutes. Okay, next day I'm doing this, like 28 minutes. Yeah. And I just kept sitting until I think that my record was like 15 minutes. Like just do 50 pounds and you just peel them. And then it was just like this, okay, you achieve this. I'll go to the next thing, and it was just, it seemed, and it's so funny because I was so young when I did that. I didn't realize that those were kind of, I was setting these little, these little goals or these little like, I don't know, little steps.
Yeah, little markers along the way.
Yeah. And it was like so dumb. I still look back on it. And that's how, we even teach that there's a few high school kids that work with us, and that's how I teach them too. Now I'm like, you see that whole big case of cabbage? Like you got to shred all of that cabbage. And he goes, and I'm like, I give you 30 minutes because if I come back here in 30 minutes, you're not done. Like I'm like, there's literally no I don't tell them that there's no consequence, but I'm like, in 30 minutes you have to be done because I have to get you on the next task. Yeah. And it's like you see them going really fast and they're so focused at it. How about like? So I'm really just fascinated by your boot camp here with you in the Marines. What for you was that switch from like being like that rebellious, like don't tell me what to do, to like, sir, yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you the exact situation that happened. Is I think it was just like the second week that I was there, and one of the we call them drill instructors in the Marine Corps, got in my face, started calling me all kind of crazy names, which we can't say here, but. And I just got pissed, and I screamed right back at him in his face. Yeah. And they say they can't touch you, but one thing led to another, and I'm like, all right, I'm good. I ain't gonna win this fight, you know. So then from there, I realized, okay, the game is not to rebel. That doesn't take you anywhere. Yeah. Like if you conflict against the conflict, it's not gonna take you anywhere. Yeah. Sometimes you just gotta take the instructions, roll with it, and eventually the evolution or the period of boot camp is going to end. And when it's over, then it's done, and it's done. But in the process, you learned a lot of things. You got yelled at and stuff like that, and you learn to just take it. Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome.
That's how it is.
It's awesome to know, like for you, like that moment where you're like,
instant switch.
Yeah, like that switch where you're like, oh.
Yeah.
I know the hack for this, or I don't want to call it a hack, but
well,
you know what I'm saying?
It's the game, How do you play it? Well, the way you play it, the easiest way to get out of this game, if we look at it as a game, the easiest way to complete this level is just
comply.
Comply, play by the rules, and you'll get out of this, and then next challenge after.
Yeah, because it's like I can fight back, but you lose every time. Then it's like, well, I don't want to keep losing because it doesn't get anywhere.
And you just get frustrated too. So it's like there's no point.
That's amazing. I think that's like a great lesson in life, huh?
It was good. I mean, and at the time too, it's being 18, and I've gotten in trouble back home when I was a teen, but it's different when it's somebody you've never met in your life, you've never seen them. These guys are like, they're not that much older than us. They're probably like 24 or 25, but they're holding the rank of sergeant or staff sergeant. So there's someone way above you already.
And they've seen things, they've done things.
They've been in war, exactly. So when you see that and you're 18 years old and all you know is high school and your buddies, and then all of a sudden you see a 24-year-old who's been in war, he's got a sergeant on his neck, and he yells at you like that, you're like, okay, I'll just do what you guys say.
Absolutely. When you were out there in Boot, did you find, was there other Hmong kids out there too that you met?
Two. I crossed two, I can tell right away because it said, so we have nameplates or name tags, and I saw Vang. I'm like,
I'm Hmong. You're
Hmong, right? You're Hmong, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, so I met those two, but you don't run across them too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit here and there, but it's pretty rare.
Have you noticed that there's, or I don't know the stats or anything on this, but I'm just asking, like, you notice that is there higher engagement in like Hmong kids like joining the military here, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I do see more now. It's become almost normal. It's an open choice, right? Yeah. You've seen enough of them. You've seen enough of them now. So I think it's an open choice. So I definitely see that it's, I don't keep up with it very much. I'm just super busy doing my own thing, but I do see a lot more young Hmong guys and girls just joining. So I think it just got normalized a little bit, which is good. It means that everybody can do the same thing.
Yeah, I think
that's good.
I think what's really cool is like, I never did the military. We were talking, my brother, is in the Army and done a really great job of what he's done and built a great career in it. And but I think that there's just this connection still to like where our parents and our grandparents came from, especially our dads and our grandfathers, came from, being in the war, fighting in the war, and just that, militaristic mindset. Yeah. And so it's just been really cool to see that. And I'm just like really proud for myself to just have, family members or, just knowing that my brother was in it. And, he did Afghanistan, he did Iraq and stuff like that. And so it's just been something pretty cool. And I always get so proud when I hear, especially young Hmong kids who are like saying, hey man, right out, like, I think I want to serve, and I want to go into the military. So for me, it's just been it's like a real proud moment. Like, that's really cool, man.
Yeah, it's commitment. It's a big commitment. And then I also know that, for the ones who take it the right way and learn from it, there's a lot of growth that happens there. It's your first time leaving. It's not like, I mean, going to college is probably one thing, and I didn't go to college like away from home.
Good. You didn't miss out much.
But to go somewhere where you're gonna get yelled at for like you're volunteering for that, man, if you can take it and adapt with it, then you learn a ton, and you just get used to not being away from home. And I remember coming back as a 19, 20-year-old, and one of my best friends actually, he ended up joining right after. And later on, he told me, like, man, you just came back different. Like, you were kind of proud of who you were and all those things. Because before that, I was just like a skater, like a rollerblader type kid. So I was just a skater kid, not a ton of confidence besides hanging out in my little clique. Yeah. But after the Marine Corps, I came back and I was a lot more confident because it's just like, okay, I'm a 19-year-old. I've left my home. I've been challenged. I've got tested. You accomplish
things.
Yeah, you do stuff.
Right?
So
like you accomplish all these things. You know what? Your 3 months at boot camps, like there were all these obstacles that you accomplished, and you pained and you went through stuff, and you were tired and you were sore, and it was you worked hard.
You get tested.
You get tested. Yeah, and then you're just like in one of the like top military branches. Like, no knock on the other branches, but like the Marines is not like, it's not like a it's not like a cakewalk.
It's
like,
to mess with you.
Yeah. You know,
like to mess with you.
Yeah, and so like, you come back and you're like, hey, I'm not like, I'm not that little boy here anymore, and you've seen a few things.
It's almost to a default though, because when you're 18, 19-year-old with a bunch of ego, and that's what you get filled, and your mind gets filled with you're the best, you're the best, you're a badass and those things. Yeah. it can be something you have to also manage, which is tough to do as a 19-year-old.
And that's what the sergeants are there for, to remind you that you're still a little peon.
Yeah, exactly.
Just because you went through the obstacle course does not mean that we can't take you.
But no, you learn a lot, man. You learn a ton.
Awesome. So then you go from there doing that, and then how did you get into you came back home here, EMT, firefighter, right?
Yep. So I came back home. Once I got back home, then so I was a firefighter in the Marine Corps. My original goal from the time I was 17 was that I wanted to be a firefighter at some point.
Really?
Like I already kind of knew that. I was watching a documentary and I was like, it's really cool. Like it was about 9/11. So I watched that and I got really inspired by it. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do that. So I went to the Marine Corps for that. And then when I got out, I was like, well, do I still want to be a firefighter like in the real civilian world? Mm-hmm. And so I just Googled St. Paul Fire, they're hiring. And I'm like, let me just go for this, Mm-hmm. So I did. And between the interview to the time I got hired was a long period. It was 3 years.
Oh, wow.
From the time I applied to the time I actually got on the job.
Why is it such a long process?
It's just the selection process is the classes really only come on once in a while when there's positions that need to be filled, right? Because you only have so many players on the whole department that you can fill, right? Whatever the mayor is wanting at the time.
Yep.
So once some leave, then they'll do academies. But because everybody's retiring at different rates or different timelines, then you don't always have the gaps. So it can take a while. And so for me, it took 3 years of waiting, just like crossing fingers, like hopefully I get this job, and it worked out. So I'm happy. I'm happy it worked out. But now I've left. But
did you so talk to me about this. You say you're inspired by this documentary, to be a firefighter, like. What was it about it that drew you?
Yeah,
because most people don't run into into emergencies and buildings falling apart. Right. Most people run away.
Yeah.
Like there are very few that are bred to be like, no, we got to go in there.
Yeah. So in the documentary, I think it was it was not about 9/11 first of all, but this whole documentary was mostly focused on the New York firefighters. Like it was from the perspective of the firefighters. It was these two French brothers who documented this, and it's a really good doc. But it just covered these firefighters going through the building, running up the stairs. And I just remember being like 17 I was probably 17, laying in my parents' room, like almost crying, tearing up to myself, like, man, those guys that's freaking awesome what they're doing, Obviously at 17, you don't think about all the trauma that comes with it. No,
not at all.
But the idea sounds awesome.
It's action,
The idea sounds cool. So that's kind of what led me to really just say like, man, maybe we can do this, but obviously you don't know what the future looks like, but it's just at least it planted the idea in the head. Like, all right, we could do that, And then through firefighting in the Marine Corps, I learned quite a few things. I learned that I could put on the gear, that I could suffer through the gear and still hold my own. Yeah. Which that's a huge test. Yeah. Not everybody knows if they can hold their own in that.
Yeah, dude. How heavy is the gear?
It's probably like 50, 60 pounds.
So like you got to throw another 60 pounds on yourself.
Yeah, and I'm small dude, So for like big dudes, like 6'2", 220, that's like 5% of your body weight. Yeah. But for 5'7", 160, it's like 25% of your body weight.
Yeah, so you got to throw that on, and then you got to work in that gear too, right?
Yeah, and that stuff is it's pretty uncomfortable, but that's another part that I thank the Marine Corps for, because in the Marine Corps you get put in stuff like that too, flak jackets, helmets, packs. So you kind of get used to just being uncomfortable. And so that kind of led to firefighting. And then I was kind of used to it already. So that helped a lot.
So did you, while you were in the Marine Corps doing firefighting in the Marine Corps, did you get to work on, carriers and stuff like that, or?
No. So even though that's the job that I went for, we really never did that.
Okay.
The only time when we really did work was we went to Africa for 7 months. We went over there to be basically a police force. And so nothing to do with firefighting. But we went and did that for about 7 months in Djibouti, Africa.
Okay.
And so that's East Coast of Africa. And so we went there. That was a cool experience. Yeah. Came back. But I never really did my job.
Yeah. But then you got to here in St. Paul.
I got to in St. Paul. The one thing that I was able to do in the Marine Corps is that I got to go through a fire academy.
Oh, okay.
And I had to go through a fire academy for St. Paul. So I had already been through one. So I knew that I could do another one.
Which one was easier? Or should I, which one's harder?
Probably the Marine one, probably. Because it's military. So you get messed with a little harder, Versus here,
Yeah.
for the city, it's still a job.
Yeah,
so it's not the military.
Yeah.
So they don't mess with you as hard. But it's still hard. It's still hard.
So your old
They still
coworkers
test you,
hearing
yeah.
this is like, what? What's going on? No.
Yeah, it's still hard.
Yeah. So you came back, you got the job. Like how is it like? Talk to me about how's it being the life of a firefighter here?
Yeah. So firefighting is a really interesting job.
Yeah.
It's completely different from other jobs, right? So first of all, we work 10 days a month full time. So 24-hour shifts.
Wait, 10 days a month?
10 days a month full time. That's your full time salary position. Is only 10 days a month, but 24-hour shifts.
So for like 10 days out of the month, you're not at home. You just like
you're at the fire station for 24-hour periods, but it's not one segment of 10 days. It'd be, for example, like you work Monday 24 hours, you're off for 24 hours. It kind of offsets like that.
Okay.
And then you'll go on breaks that are like a week long. But overall, you only work 10 days a month.
Okay.
Which is why I had a lot of time to start a business.
Yeah.
But so that, for one, is completely different, right?
Yeah.
You miss out a lot on your home life.
Yeah.
You just live at the station light, and they always say it's like a brotherhood. It's like a family.
Yeah.
It is, because you cook together.
You live together.
You brush your teeth together. It's like
you get annoyed with each other.
You get annoyed with each other. Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of little bickering between each other. So it's that lifestyle. So
how many dudes are in your firehouse?
So here in St. Paul, so I floated around. So I've gone to a couple. I stayed for a while down here on Payne.
Yeah.
I stayed over on White Bear and Suburban for a while, and I was also downtown for a while.
Okay.
But it's anywhere from 4 at the smallest firehouse to probably like a dozen, 12.
Yeah. So you have a bunch of roommates.
You have a bunch of roommates.
And that's like you guys have little sleepovers or something.
Yeah. Basically.
Yeah.
And so when someone's not taking care of the dishes,
you're just like, dude,
it's like living with them. Dude, I clean my dishes, you clean your dishes.
It's like a big frat house almost, right?
And I always call it that. It's basically a big frat, but it's
with
a job.
Adults.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then you guys will just hang out until you're called up, right?
Yeah, pretty much. You just sit around. So you'll come in and you'll do some things like clean the bathroom, clean the station or whatever, get the day started. And then after that, you pretty much just sit around, and sometimes you train, most times you take naps. But when the calls come, you never know what's coming. And that was a very exciting part to the job that I really liked for a long time until I didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't know what you're going to get. And that could be any time of the day, any time of the year, hot, freezing cold. 2 a.m., 3 a.m. You never know. In the middle of your dinner.
Yeah.
In the middle of using the restroom, in a shower. You just never know when it's coming.
So let me ask, like as a firefighter here in St. Paul, like was it only fires that you were called out for, or what? Like, because I think that there's like misconceptions of how that works.
Yeah. So in St. Paul, it's actually an EMS and fire combined department. So every firefighter is going to be either an EMT, emergency medical technician, or a paramedic.
What's the difference between that?
Just kind of different certifications. Okay. Paramedic is a higher level. Okay. They can do a few more things.
Yeah.
They go through longer school, obviously. But so every fire station in St. Paul, at least, because it's really important to know that it's completely different city to city.
Oh, okay.
They're different companies, basically, if you want to look at it that way. But St. Paul will have an ambulance and a fire truck. And so exactly. So when the call comes, we're listening for what is it, and if it comes in as like allergic reaction or diabetic, then you're going to the ambulance. And if it comes in as house fire or gas leak, things like that, then you're going to the fire truck.
So you can go to either.
You can go to either. So you kind of have technically 2 jobs.
Yeah.
You technically have 2 jobs.
Huh? I never knew that.
Yeah.
And I think that everyone just thinks that, firefighters, they only come out when there's a fire. It's like, well, no, it could be like a crash, it could be whatever, and then anything that's considered emergency, and it's friends of mine who are EMTs and that our firefighters have, told me that, and I'm like, oh, I never knew that. There's something, the public. I don't think the public ever really knows.
It's one thing to just deal with going into a fire. That's a challenge in itself, right? Yeah. You're dealing with, old, especially in St. Paul, you're dealing with old homes, structures that have been kind of configured illegally. You don't know what you're going into. Yeah. That's one thing to deal with that. But then when you throw in the EMS side of it, well, now you're dealing with everything from stabbing, shootings. I mean, like the nastiest of the things that could happen, you're going to them. So you get you're challenged in both ways, both physically on the fire side, and then obviously on the EMS side, it's a little less fast paced than a fire. It's a completely different type of mindset. You're almost like a street nurse. But you're still dealing with people in their homes. So you're not like, we always joke that the nurses have a clean room with their tools are all laid out.
Yes, the nurses love that when you say that. You're like, you get your job so easy.
I mean, I respect to that, but when we show up, the things we show up in your conditions. So however you live, this is where we have to work. Man, so you see a lot of things.
In one of my earlier jobs, our group was contracted out by the county, and we would do like a wellness check on children. Because of it's court mandated, so like I would be the one who come in. It would be like basically it's a surprise. It's just like it's like I would have like my work list would be like, you have these like 4 homes, twice a day. Anytime you want, you have to go at least twice a day or whatever. And man, when I did that, I was like, the things I saw,
the things you see
in like people's homes, and the things you smell, and the things that are like, and I couldn't go in and be like, oh my gosh, I gotta get out.
Right.
No, you gotta
professional,
and then you just document everything. Like, and I wasn't there to tell them they had to change this or that. I was literally there as the eyes and ears of the social worker. So I didn't have to be a social worker. I'm literally, I observe. Hi, how are you doing? And that, to me, I remember doing that job going, there's so much things. There's so much. And I can't even imagine the things
it's a lot, and it's partly why eventually I left is just, you just see a lot of things. Behind closed doors, there's just a lot of things that happen. And I don't care how rich or how poor or which demographic you fit in.
You've seen it all.
You've seen it all. So in a way, it's kind of cool. It's really humbled me to just accept that, hey, man, human being is a human being. I don't care how rich you are, how poor you are, how well structured your family might be. When you're sick, man, you're sick. You're sick. It doesn't matter who you are.
So then you alluded to having some open time, and you started your own business?
So when I got in the fire department, obviously, I love the schedule, but I'm a busybody.
Yeah, dude.
And so I had 20 days off. I'm like, dude, I can't just sit around and do nothing. So the first year I really took it easy, just enjoyed being a firefighter. And then after that, a cousin of mine proposed opening a business with me in a field that I had zero experience in.
Really?
Right? Yeah, zero experience in. It's auto detailing and window tinting. So it's automotive. I've always liked cars, but I've never been a guy to really put my hands on them too much. So when he proposed that to me, it was like, sure, let's just try, And so I kind of, that's where the business started. And it was just a thing that I just learned on the job. I taught myself on the job, like, okay, this is how business works. This is how you do this. This is how you do that. So obviously doing it that way is a long process because no one's there to show you. But now it's been 7 years and we're not where we obviously want to be, but we know that we're able to create something out of nothing.
That's
and
awesome.
That's nice to know that you can create something out of nothing in this, anywhere, but in this country especially.
Yeah, and I also think too that being able to do where you kind of, you have your day job still, but then like on your off time, being able to like, so you're not pressured and being like,
you're not
this is the way that I gotta like make a living.
You can stay passionate. It's easier to stay passionate because you're like, if this business didn't really work, I have a good salary right here.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
And so that was a blessing. But it also was a downfall because now that I'm full-time, I've realized where I went wrong is that you got to treat a business like what it is. And I realized that just recently within the last year. So it's like I'm starting backwards a little bit, but
I
part
think
of the game.
Yeah, I think that, bro, you're kind of ahead though, because doing that means like you can truly love what you do. And falling in love with, your business and saying, like this is, I'm really loving this. And then, because it wasn't like, oh, I love this. Now I have to cut these corners because I have to make these sales.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I was like very blessed to be able to have, like I worked at a fish shop while we started doing these little pop-ups,
Nice.
So like during the week I work at that fish shop. That was my 9 to 5-ish or whatever you want to call that. And then on the weekends we like once, we come down to Cook St. Paul. And that's where we, did our pop-ups, It was just like, okay. And then we got a little bigger and a little more exposure. And then it's like during the week, we have these catering gigs we can do, which, kind of pays the bill, kept everything kind of small. Like we kept half the stuff like in my brother's garage. and we can pull it out, you know. But then it's like, okay, now we can do maybe 2 pop-ups a month, you know, and then still keep like, we're not going to budge. We're not going to budge from this, you know. And then eventually I went through the same thing, what you're just saying, where you say you got to look at it as a business. Like in the last, I would say my last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
I went through that too. I went exactly through that. Where
it changes your whole perspective.
Absolutely.
But it's good. It needs to at some point.
Yeah.
Right. Otherwise, it just becomes a hobby that drags on too
absolutely.
long.
Yeah.
It's a hobby you have forever, and you look back, you're like, oh, I didn't accomplish anything.
Yeah. You know, and it's not about making money, but at the end of the day, it's a business, right?
It's
so
a
you got to be
business.
sustainable. And so my buddy, he's an you know, he does numbers and he's an accountant guy. So he makes, you know, that's what he does. And he always has a saying when he goes, when I do people's taxes, they always say, oh, hey, this is my like this is my business. And he goes, I'll go through their books, and I'm like, oh, you lost money, man. That's called a hobby. Like, and it's, and he goes, I'll never say this to them. Yeah. But in his mind, he's like, no, if you're not making money, then it's a hobby, you know?
Yeah, and we always want to, like, talking about money is a weird subject, but it's like, to me, it's, the nice thing about going into business, one thing that it did for me is it really, really made me focus on finances and understanding finances. And I'm not saying I'm good at it now, but it's just an important thing that to live in this world, you have to understand it. If you don't understand it, you have a hard time. And so to understand it is a crucial part of, and then business helps because business is all about it. So that helps you lean towards it. But it's such an important thing to not only know, learn, but to like teach too. Like I always try to teach other people, like not that I know much, but just to like, hey, save some money. You know, you never know when things are gonna happen. Maybe you'll want to start a business, then you'll have some money. Maybe you want to buy a house. Maybe you want to buy your parents a house. You know, dreams, big dreams. And it's not about the money. It's about the doors. It's about linking up with people. It's about it's opportunities.
Yeah, and I also think too is like what you do is there's craft that you do that you're good at and you love it. Yeah, and you don't want to. And you don't want to cut corners on it, and you want to be able to be passionately talking about it. And there's, you know, a lot of other people that are doing the same thing you're doing, but then you're saying, hey, like this is what makes us special. And I think that's like what's really, really cool, you know, about when you have that when that switch turns in your head, where it's like, oh, this is business. This isn't like a clubhouse that we have. And this is what I always tell all, you know, we started with just me and my cousin, and now we're up to like 25, 26 employees, you know, and so. And we have like a whole executive team. We have, you know, like, you know, certain chefs that are in place. I can do what I get to do, you know, while other chefs are running things. And I think that, especially we talk about this too, like being in that Hmong world, you know, where there's that professionalism. Like we were just talking about that offline a little bit. And I really, man, I don't know about you, but I really, really strive for us. For people to come to us or people to want to be our guests, you know, come to be part of, get our product or whatever, because we're the best. Yeah. Not because they're the best Hmong No. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you ever feel like 100%.
That? Because I've never, well, so here's one thing. I grew up in France, right? So I was born and raised in France. So I never grew up around
fancy Hmong people. Sorry, are you fancy?
got the Paris jersey.
You're the baguette Hmong, they call it. Yeah. You're the croissant Hmong.
But because I didn't grow up next to Hmong people a lot, my competition when I looked around me was never Hmong. So I was just like, if they're good and that's what they're doing and I want to be good, I must do what I do. I think that can be a problem when you come here and you have too many Hmong people, where then you kind of take the fame inside of that world. But it's nice too. That's beneficial for you as well. But why not be the best at it in general? Like be your best version in this world that you're in. And that could open doors that maybe you never even imagined you could have, or just you can do, you know, have adventures that you just didn't think you could have. And it just expands your world. And I think that's the way that I would say to do it, you know, but everybody's different.
Yeah, I think that what we try to do, especially with the point of this podcast, Hmonglish, is this idea that, you know, we're Hmong, 100% Hmong, but we live in a world that's not Hmong. You know, we live in, for those who are from Hmong people from France, you live in that French world. For the Hmong people from Mikahi, you live in that American world, you know. And when those two worlds collide, we get this third culture. And that's why how we get the name Hmonglish. You know, it's a hybrid. It's a hybrid, but it's also a way of us keep pushing our culture forward, because it's like we always, as a kid growing up, the thing that Yelo or the old people were always worried about is like, oh, you're losing your Hmongness. You're losing your Hmongness. And I say this with all due respect, is like, what if our Hmongness is evolving?
Yeah.
Is that okay? Is that okay that our Hmongness is evolving? Just as our parents and our grandparents who used to live in the mountains of Laos, that during the war, everything changed and they started living in the lowlands. And then they started interacting with the Thai and the Blah and Yela, And then when they start interacting with, the Laotians and the Thais and the Vietnamese, these ideas converged and our Hmongness evolves a little bit, There's this progression. Yep. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, 100%. I mean, the nice thing is growing up in France, I met Hmong people from France, so you could see how they molded to become French, right? They love baguettes. They love French breakfast, pain au chocolat, and these little things. But then you come to the U.S. and they have their own style, and so you're like, okay, well, you're Hmong, and I've met the Hmong Australians.
Yeah,
too.
the Australian Hmong,
like, hey, you're
Outback
Hmong
too.
Yeah, you're Hmong too. And I just came back from Laos and Thailand 2 months ago. It's my first time ever being there.
Yeah,
but
I'm going there in a few months.
Dude, have you been?
Oh, I haven't been back since I was born in Vinay.
Okay,
but I haven't been back. So
dude,
I go back. I go in April.
Yeah. So, but when I see those Hmong people from all over the place, it's the commonality is sometimes you can just look at a Hmong person somewhere else and be like, dude, you're Hmong, and that's a huge thing. Now everybody's gonna take onto that and latch onto that in different ways because people just adapt to it differently. But to me, it's huge. It's who we are. We hear about it all our life when we grow up, the stories, all those things. So I try to make that it's a strong bond no matter where you come from or which neighborhood or which demographic you fit in. That's the bond that ties us together. I think for us maybe is just how do we bring the most positive energy into that world. And like you said, there is progression. It will change. It adapts to the times. I don't know that there's anything else we can do about that.
I think that's what makes Hmong people so great, is that no matter the condition of the history of the world, no matter what happens, our people have been able to survive, adapt to it, and move forward. And that's the thing that, like, when people ask me, or when I'm in an interview, people always do, well, what makes you Hmong? That's what I talk about. Like, I watched my parents do it.
Yeah,
they came to America. They knew nothing. They knew no English, nothing. Like they scavenged. They hustle. They worked hard. They grind hard. My dad grind for almost 35 years.
Yeah, they really do.
Yeah, to make sure we got everything that we needed, so that we were without excuse. We didn't say, oh, well, we're paper blonde, we're Hmong, we're poor, we don't know anything. Like, we didn't have an excuse, dude. Like, college, we could have gone. Military, we could have gone. Any opportunity we wanted, we had a fair shot, and like, our parents hustled for that.
Yeah.
And I think that looking back on that, I was like, wow, like, with us, one generation sacrifices themselves so the next generation can have a platform. And a question I always ask our generation is like, what are we going to sacrifice? Like, what's our sacrifice when it comes our time?
I don't know, but I hope the kids will see the sacrifices that went all the way to like the generations down. You hope so, but you don't know, right? You don't know, because each generation gets removed further and further and further. You were born over there, right? In Thailand, so Thailand, right?
Thailand,
the camps.
Yeah.
Okay, so and we're so closely linked with Laos, Thailand, and those places still because our parents have told us. But I always sit at home, or I'll sit by myself and just think, like, what is it going to be like one generation more and one generation more? And like you said, there's going to be evolutions of what it means to be Hmong, and I'm curious to see what it'll look like.
But do you know what I was thinking about? I bet you our parents thought the same thing when they were here, either in France or here in Mika, or here, in the US, and they were sitting there going, well, will our kids understand? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They probably thought the same thing when we started going to school, and they're like, well, will they still keep the tongue, our native tongue? Will they still, right? Will they know our traditions? Will they know our rules? I bet you they did the same thing, but in a way, I think that what we've been doing with our restaurant, what we've been doing with the podcast, what we've been doing with everything that we've been doing is, I just had this aha moment right now, where I feel like I'm kind of wrapping this as a gift to my parents, and we do understand.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like this is your legacy here. We do understand. We're hoping that young Hmong kids, I always call them kids, but like the younger generation can look onto that and use that as a little bit of an artifact.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? And then they can go, let's follow those breadcrumbs. Where does that lead us?
And it's our job too, right? To like, we are the generation after our parents, so it is our job to push down these things from the culture, whatever we know as individually. It's like our job to push it down to the next generation as well, and maybe explain it in a way where they are more willing to accept the way it's told, because every generation is a little different. But
would you say that for us now, it's more like one hand we hold the tradition, and the other hand we give we take that, and we communicate that, we give that tradition to the younger generation?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to, because as we get older, we start to understand the importance of like what it means to be Hmong. And I never really thought about it ever growing up. You're just doing your thing. But as I get older, especially going to Laos, man, that changed everything.
How was that? I was going to ask you that, man.
Yeah, it changed everything for me, because I had heard all the stories. But I grew up in France. I grew up in the U.S. I'm a Western kid, I grew up on whatever the latest hip hop is around. So when I got to go over there and I got to see it, and when you're just sitting next to another human being from that country and you're sharing a meal, you're having a beer together, it just really settles you in place to like, okay, I maybe could have been here as well, and this is how I could have been. This setting could have been the setting that I grew up in.
This is my backyard.
This is my backyard. So it just really settles into, it concretes the idea of like where your parents are from that much more. And I needed that in my life to really see it and just be like, these are the jungles. This is what it looks like. This is what Longting looks like. This is what it all feels like. And when you see that, you're like, okay, now mom and dad, now when you tell me again, now the visuals, because I've seen them for myself now, I can paint the picture.
That's what I'm talking about.
And I think you're going to get that for sure when you go there. But that, and of course the food was good and the people are nice, and it's awesome, man.
So for you, like, what was that experience? Like, did you expect any of that, or like, what was your I guess what were your thoughts going into it?
Yeah.
Or was it like, this is going to be a cool vacation type, visiting, or what?
So I've traveled quite a bit around, but that trip I knew was gonna be like almost like a spiritual journey.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the way.
Talk to me about it. Yeah.
That's the way I treated it. So I knew that when I go there, I'm gonna see where my parents grew up. I'm gonna see where Hmong people fled from.
Yeah.
I'm gonna see what Hmong people are like over there. They don't make the same type of money, and they have harder conditions. I'm gonna get to see what that's like. So it was really just about like it was almost like a figuring out who you are type adventure, and that's the way I treated it.
Soul quest.
Soul quest. And that's the way I painted it in my head before going, and that's the perspective that I used, the eyes that I used when I was there the whole time. So it was super emotional, man. I like broke down and cried to myself like a bunch of times, but it was just because when you grew up in the Western world, it's all you know, and then when you go back over there, you're like, dang, this is actually where my parents are from.
Yeah.
Like, this is what they grew up with. Yeah. And it just makes you realize, you come back home and you realize, like, man, how fortunate are we that, like, we do things for fun, like podcasts or clean cars. And I can clean cars, and I can be a business, and I can make money and make a life out of that. Like, in Laos, they'd just be happy to have cars. Nobody cares how clean the paint is. It's a luxury of living in a capitalist society that's progressive in like the U.S. or France, where I grew up, or the Western world. So it was eye-opening on many, many fronts. I mean, I could talk about it forever. It's just
no, man. I want to hear more about it.
But yeah, like it was expensive. For example, the ticket were expensive. And I was like, do I spend it? And then I talked to my dad, and my dad was like, we're going to go to Longting this one time. Yeah. And then we're not coming back. We're never going to come back to Longting. We just want to go back once.
So you went with your parents?
Yep. I went with my parents and my grandma and stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
So this was their first time in 48 years that they went back to Longting.
Shut
they
up.
had never gone back.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let's just buy these tickets. Let's go, because if my dad's never coming back to Longting, I don't see myself going to Longting by myself. Yep. So let's go. And I've told everybody this that I've talked to about this adventure is, since I've come home, I have never thought about a single dollar that went into the cost of the trip, because what I saw there and how I felt there, I don't care. It could have been 20 grand, 30 grand. I would have still wanted to go and do it, you know? So I encourage people to go.
So for me, we're going there. There's a production crew that's doing
nice.
that we're going to like do this, you know, we're going to film this thing there. And we're going to actually go back to where my parents were born. And and they found some Hmong people in the villages, like near Longchang, you know, like, but you know, it's always like Longchang, but then it's like these like little villages, you know what I'm saying, right? Yeah. And so we, you know, the whole trip is about going there and then getting into some of these villages, meeting up with some of these Hmong families and then cooking with them, right? And there's, you know, these producers email me and like, hey, you know, we'll do this, you know, we'll set this up. It's going to be like basically like a 14-day, it's a 2-week trip, you know, and, you know, at middle April. And I'm just like, man, we got all these other projects we're doing, you know, we're opening a different pop-up around that time. So I'm like, I don't think I can do it, you know? And I had this, I was like, I don't think I can do it. It's, you know, timing's kind of off, right? And it's the only time that the production crew can do it, you know, this production crew there that can do it. And so I remember I talked to my mom and I was like, yeah, Mom, they, you know, sent me this thing about going there, blah, blah, blah. And my mom's like, you know, your dad and I really want you to go see where we were born and where we came from and understand, you know, and see that. And I think I went to bed that night having this aha moment where it's just like, maybe I'll get another chance, but I don't know if I'll get another chance like this to go with the production team, to go with, it's going to be recorded, it's going to be archived. It's something that, you know, I can bring it back to them, you know, to walk to literally go and walk the streets and the dirt paths and in the mountains that they grew up in, you know, because like our Miga friends that are from this, you know, Minnesota area, they can just be like, oh yeah, my grandpa's farm over there and, you know, Hastings or da. It's like they can go anytime and it's their, you know, oh yeah, my grandpa grew up here and he played baseball over here. And that's so like easier for them. But for us, we travel literally across the world to do it.
20 hours.
Yeah, dude. They sent me my flight itinerary and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Your knees will lock up.
I know. That's what I heard. They told me everything. Like, here's all the tricks, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought about it, man. I kind of had this thing where like, I'm really starting to prepare myself for it, you know? It's like, okay, how do you prepare yourself?
I watched a bunch of documentaries before I went.
Oh, really?
Yeah, dude, because I wanted to reset.
Send me the ones you watch.
Well, anything on YouTube, man. Anything. But I just wanted to reset everything that I thought I already knew to re-understand so that when I'm there, because I'm not going to be there many times. When I'm step foot there, I want to know that all the history that I got, I just reread. And so I can look at it and be like, oh, yeah, this is where all this happened.
So the crazy thing was, so the other day I was talking to my dad about the trip there, right? And he's like, okay. And he literally takes a scratch piece of paper and he takes it on the back and he takes out his pen. And my dad hasn't been there like 40 years or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Since they left, right? Or some. And he fills out, you know, and he literally draws me their village.
Yeah.
And where Longcheng is and where the airport was, where all this stuff is in the mountains and the rivers. And he's like, no, okay, you're going to walk this way and you go down these trails and you're going to go on the street. Now, if you're on this side of the river, then you turn the wrong turn. And he's like, this is what this river is called. And it's like, it looks like chicken scratch, the whole thing. Yeah. And then he gives me the map, like if it's Google Maps or something. He goes, okay, so just take that map with you. And I'm like, okay, Dad. I have no idea what I'm doing. And he was like, but it was like when he was talking to me, there was so... It was like he was this boy who's just like, deep, do you know what I'm saying, bro? Like,
100%.
Like he remembers everything, like everything. Like this is his home. He had to leave. War came, it blew up, and he had to leave. And I don't think he wanted to leave, but he left all of that. You know, like where you live now, like you can draw the map out of like how to get to your house from where we are right now, right? Easily. Like he did that. Right. But he's like over this mountain and you got to cross this bridge. And there was this skirmish that happened here and then we fought over there. And I was like just so drawn in. And when my dad was just like on the back of this paper, he's drawing this whole thing for me. And I had this aha moment and I realized like, man, this is his home. His home that he left. Like imagine they're like, you had to leave here and you could never go back. And all your kids heard was stories of where you used to be. You know, and that's where it really hit me like, man, like I get a chance to go there. Like this is not a lot of opportunity, but to get a chance to go there and then it gets documented and it gets put on, you know, it gets recorded and we can rewatch it together, you know, and you know,
I think, I mean, what you're doing is, it's awesome. I think it's cool when you record a lot of your life. Maybe some might think it's cheesy to record all these things and it's part of a show or whatnot. But the way I look at it is one day when you're old
Yeah.
and you're going to watch all those tapes back of yourself or tapes that I've done at my job,
Yeah.
you're going to look at that and be like, show it to your kids and be like, hey, this is what your grandpa was doing back in the day. And at least it's whenever someone passed, they always talk about like, oh, I wish I would have videotaped them more or filmed them more. Or it's like, at least we're kind of doing that. Maybe inherently because it's our jobs too.
Yeah.
But it's kind of cool to record those things.
But I also think too that our grandparents never had that.
Yeah, they did.
So,
you
know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they
didn't. So like, for example, like I said this to somebody the other day. I said, you know, our parents and our grandparents, they're like historical archives.
Yeah.
And imagine if it's like a hard drive that's corrupted. And then a lot of them are getting older. A lot of them have passed away. Like, if you have any kind of like, you know, like, I don't know, like big computers that you have all these hard drives in, and if they start crashing and you're like, shoot, how do we save? How do we download this? Well, for us, it's in their heads and you can't really download it. And the best we can do is record. Like that's why audio and visual recording is so important to the Hmong people, huh? And remember back in the olden days, did you guys do the cassette tapes where you recorded?
Yeah, where you listen to like grandma, some grandma would talk about the stories.
Yeah,
and stuff.
and or they would send it back and forth from Laos. That's how like I call it old school voice texting.
Yeah,
you know, the little cassettes. Yeah, man, like that's all we had, and so a lot of those are gone now. And they would tell stories about this is what happened today, and they tell their stories of their day, and then they put it in a cassette and they send it across to the U.S. So then, you know, like, so grandma would send it so that her son can hear it. And then we would take that tape and then we would all record and we would send it back to them, you know?
Yeah.
But we don't have a lot of that.
It makes me feel like I need to arm myself with a camera and like go find every Hmong person that's older and be like, tell me your story. Now you tell me your story.
Absolutely,
you know?
man. And I think that's important for us to have because we don't have a lot of that. And a lot of the documents or even recording that we have is just from old school, like, documentaries from back in the day, and it showed our people in the light of people blowing chipota, like we're in, you know what I'm saying, like we're in these villages where, like, you know, which is awesome to have, but I think that it's good to have things that can document, like, here is success, here is what happens when a whole generation strives and hustles, and this is what we've been able to do. And I think that sometimes I get caught up in the whole, like, whatever, it's just another show we did, blah, 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 you know? And I get caught up in that, and I'm like, I try not to think too much about it, you know? But I think that there was this one time where there was this Hmong mom who pulled me aside once, and it said, it's so great that my son can see you doing that, and he can turn on, like, national TV and see someone that looks like him. And I never thought about it that way, dude. And she's just like, he watches your shows, and it's so great. And it wasn't a praise. Like, I don't take that as a praise on me. Yeah. I take that as a praise on all the hardship, like my mom and my dad, and the sacrifices that my grandparents did so that I have that opportunity, you know? Yeah.
No, if you can, I'm big on, like, whenever I see other Hmong people doing awesome things and it influences me, it influences other people, and influences the youth, I'm like, that's freaking awesome, man. And just by the actions that you're doing, whether it be you or anybody else, like, I always tell them, just do your thing. Just do your thing. Don't worry too much about what the other people in the Hmong community are saying about you. Just do your thing. You're gonna influence somebody, and as long as we're pushing towards the positive and the progress of just us being here, being better versions of ourselves, then it's awesome. And so, like, that lady telling you that, I mean, that's awesome. And people have said stuff like that to me too, as a firefighter, as a Marine. And
it's awesome.
I'm just going through life, but, you know.
But I think that's why it's really important that I especially, like, young Hmong boys, like, hear your story, you know, because there's always these things where it's like, as Hmong kids would grow up and goes, oh, I wish I could do that, or I wish I could be like that, you know, and it's like, nah, go do it.
You know,
like, go do it. You know, it's something where it's like, nah, you just go try. I mean, there's really like there's no, like, just take a step forward, you know, and I think that we live in a world now where it's like, if you want to do something, it's easy enough to say where, like, to find that starting point, right? Because you started your business not knowing how to do tinting, detailing, and everything,
YouTube
right?
YouTube Academy,
right?
YouTube Academy.
You can learn so much.
And now we have now the way the business is now, you would never think it just comes from YouTube, but that's the time that we're in. It's the era and time that we're in. You could pop out YouTube and how do I LLC? How do I do this? How do I actually clean this car? And then you can start something, and then you just figure it out as you go. You know? Figure it out along the path.
But I think that when I hear that too, I think that the missing element for people who do that is, like, that kind of that, you know, that hustler mentality. Like you have to put the work in.
You have to.
You know, you have to put the work in.
Yeah, you can't be lazy about that part. Yeah.
And I so like when I hear that, I mean, it's as simple as just opening up something on YouTube and figuring out the how to whatever. But I think that it, like for you, and like just talking to you now for the last hour or so, and kind of just reading up on your resume, I mean, there's a hustle fire inside of you that, you know, makes you want to say, I want to learn more. I want to learn more. In which I always say that it's like that natural learner. Like you're a natural learner where you're like
curiosity too. And then obviously I always say Hmong parents, Hmong parent pressure. I think it's a real thing too. But it's good. I'm glad, you know, when I was younger, I disliked the amount of pressure that my parents put on me to do good things. And like your uncles put those pressures on you, your aunts do that. But the older I become, the more I'm like, I'm kind of glad that they did that because in a way it bred this fire under me to try my best to do these things. And my dad would always say, you know, if I grew up here, I would try to do everything that I could, but my conditions were not what yours are. And I say, you're absolutely right. So part of me doing everything that I do, it's never just for me. I don't think about it like that, you know? I don't think about it like that at all. I think, no, I'm doing this for my parents. I'm doing it for my siblings. I'm doing it for my cousins. I'm doing it for the Hmong community. After that, I'm doing it for human beings in general. But it's like, I'm doing it for, I try to do these things so that it can better everybody, you know, and then everybody benefits, right? Everybody's better, everybody benefits. So now how we do that, we find our own avenue, and whether or not it succeeds, at least we try.
I also think too that I've learned a lot in my failures. And like, man, we failed I failed in a lot of things, and I think that in my failures have been some of the best learning lessons ever for me, where it's just like, okay, now I've learned from that. Like, how do we move forward? You know, and that's always that idea of moving forward, right? You know, that's like our company. That's our whole foundational value is based on the line of always moving forward together. You know, and it's what I learned from my dad when he said they were getting to scrimmages in war, and he said that you always have to take an inch. Like the worst thing that can happen to you in war, he goes, when you're in a battle and you're fighting, is either you stop moving or you move backwards. Like all the enemy has to do is stop you. And if they stop you, you've lost. Like that means they're getting ground and you're not. And he says, if it has to be an inch, it'll be an inch. If you're going to take 10 feet, you're going to take 10 feet. But you have to progress forward. And I think my dad said that to me when we were a kid once, and it just really stuck with me. And that became this kind of model, or this became our foundational value for our company, that we're always moving forward together. You know, and it's just something where I constantly think, like, if we get new opportunities, we get new things that are coming at us, new collaboration, new idea. I ask our team, I'm like, are we moving? Or are we always moving forward together? Are we moving forward together on this? If there's conflict within the team, there's conflict within our employees, are we moving forward together? How do we do that? You know, and so that's something where I took something that was so valuable as a Hmong kid growing up with Hmong parents and these kind of Hmong ideologies. And I'm not saying that's specific just to Hmong people, but I'm Hmong, so that's what it is. And then we're able to put that into our company, and then we're able to put that into the lives of the people that work with us, you know, and it's one of those things that we've been able to be very blessed to be a part of. And so, man, we're closing down our time here, dude, but I just want to say, dude, I am truly like inspired by you, you know, reading about, just kind of seeing your resume, hearing others talk about you with like such full respect, you know, and the things you're doing, all the different, like I said, all the different lives you lived, even hearing you talk, knowing that, man, I think that we would align ideologically together. Like some of the things that we love doing, like, you know, you love working with cars and stuff. I love doing kitchen stuff. You know, like we're
passion. Passion, right? Passion.
Absolutely,
passion's got to be there. Passion drives me when I am. And I lost my passion for firefighting, which is why I left. The easy thing would have been to stay and just say, you know, this is a good job. I might as well just stay. But it's not how I function. If I'm passionate, then I can get in there every day, late, night, whatever. I don't care. I like doing it. But without it, it's, so find something that you can be passionate about, maybe.
And it takes time. Can we tell young people it takes time to find that passion?
Yeah, you ain't gonna know right away.
Yeah, because I think that a lot of younger people today, especially Hmong kids, like they were like, well, I wanted it now. You know, and I'll be honest, man, 17, 18-year-old, you're not gonna really figure it out. Like that's more of like you're just trial and error, and you're gonna fail. It's cool. It's cool to fail. It doesn't matter. You're gonna fail.
I wish that should be a shirt, man. It's cool to fail.
Yeah, it's cool to fail.
Because it is cool to fail. Like you said earlier, each time you fail, there's like a huge lesson behind it.
Like being in the Marines, man. Like, how many times have you failed?
Man, I felt that so many times. I'm like, but dude, failing is good.
Yeah,
failing is like
it humbles you, right?
It humbles you, and if you don't, sometimes I feel weird. I don't know if you feel this way with your company or just when you in general. But sometimes I feel like if I haven't failed for a while and things feel too comfortable, I'm like, dude,
I know what you're saying.
I'm like, I don't think I'm progressing right now because I am not
moving forward, right?
Yeah, I'm not moving forward because things are kind of cozy.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't like that. Like, let's figure something to fail.
Yeah.
Like, let's figure out where we can fail here so that we can keep growing. Because
you challenge yourself. I think our strength and conditioning coach in football, when I was growing up playing football in high school and college, would always say, like, dude, if you're on there and you're racking 300 on there and you're just pushing it up and it's like you're not feeling it, it's like. Weight. Bro, you got to throw more weight on there, and I'm just like, oh yeah, and that's just the thing. Or like my mentality is like that too. It's like if we didn't have a service where we're like, shoot, that was hard, or like we gotta, or we, and I'm not saying that every service has to be hard, but like if we're in like week 3 or 4 and we're like just coasting, it's like, no, man, we're not challenging ourselves. Like we've got so comfortable with this menu, like let's tweak it a little bit, like let's bring a little disruption. Because I think in that disruption, it's good to see how we're going to grow or not.
And I think people like to see, once people start to follow the work that you do, or whatever, they like to see your progression too. And like, so it forces, it's like I always travel for detailing. Like I'll travel to Vegas or I'll travel to other shops that I really look up to just to get inspired a lot of times. But like the clients also like seeing that. It like it's cool for them to see that you're doing more and you're always pushing yourself too. And that I think that's important too. Like always push yourself a little bit.
I'm so glad you said that because just from talking to you, I feel like you're a fan of what you do.
Yeah,
like
for
you know what I'm saying. Like this isn't
a
job. This isn't just like a money thing, right?
Yeah.
Like to me, I tell people I'm a fan of the restaurant world too.
Right.
Like even around here, like my buddies, they open new places. Like I want to go.
Yeah.
Like and sometimes like schedule doesn't work, but like I plan to go, and I'm also a fan of like people who are doing amazing things. Like I love, like in the last couple years, I got into this whole side of like production, TV, podcasting and all that stuff, and I love listening or understanding the art and craft of it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's something I'm not good at, but I want to learn, right? New. So I want to be I'm a fan of it. And so I mean, just listening to you saying that goes, that's awesome. Yeah. Like you're going, hey, I'm putting my time in. Why? That means I have to go to here. I have to go to San Diego. I have to go to Orlando. I have to go to these places.
I need inspiration.
Yeah.
I need somebody to show me that I'm not that good. And that's how I say, okay, this is the next evolution. Like you said, evolution, I need progress. I need people to inspire me. But like you said, I am a fan of what I do. I mean, I get to play with nice cars. Yeah. Like, I'm not mad about it. Yeah. I'm not mad about it.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, bro, man, it is so good to have you here. I just love talking to people too who are passionate about what they do, but then also, like I said, like a fan of, their craft. And, but also too, I want to talk to Hmong people who are doing an amazing thing, who have these, and how, when we created this podcast, I specifically said, Matt, our producer, I said, I want to make a podcast for Hmong people. And it's not like a podcast explaining who the Hmong people are to Mika people. I want to make a podcast for Hmong people. Hmong people get to listen on it. And if the Mika people want to listen, they can too.
Yeah, right.
But specifically, first and foremost, this is for the Hmong community. This is for our Hmong brothers and sisters. These are for the younger Hmong generation. This is for our parents too. When they listen to it, they're going, yeah, maybe some of the stuff we're saying does work, and people are listening, Right. And so that's why like having you as a guest here has been such an honor to hear your story and to kind of hear all the different lives you've lived and to see what you're doing, man. So I appreciate you. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate it. Keep doing your thing too, man. Keep grinding, man. It's something we can all look up to.
Thanks, man.